Thank you, Scott.
Thanks for that wonderful introduction, Cynthia. So, when we were talking about conceptualizing this and me offering a master class, you know, I just started thinking, well, what is it that I really like to offer? And what immediately just popped up, because initially my head said, oh, do this, do all the things you know how to do, or that you've offered previously. And then I got, no, let's talk about what's present right now. And one of the things that's really, I think, happening is the kind of unprecedented times we live in right now, you know. And there's lots of things we can talk about it, but, you know, three of the words that come to mind for me is that I see not only in my personal self, in my clients, but even in friends and looking out in the world, is issues of imbalance, you know, issues of maybe insecurity, you know, people feeling something's not just right. So my talk, that the masterclass I'll be offering, is going to be on how to find your joy even in crazy 2020, which has been a remarkable year. So those types of feelings, I think that maybe all of us have maybe felt, or maybe we've seen in friends, you know, family, loved ones. Those imbalances or insecurities, those are like bigger things, but they can specifically show up more definitely as anger or you know, some other deeper aspect. And really what it speaks to is alignment, you know, whether we are aligned, you know, with ourselves. Obviously, there's not much we can do about the world outside of us. I mean, the world outside of us does affect us, and we can, you know, to Fran's point, you know, we can affect the change in the outer world, okay? However, what you tend to be feeling is yours. I mean, you're your own little microcosm, your own little universe, and then there's this greater universe around you. So how do those two jive? And that's one of the things we'll be talking about, you know, in the class. Interestingly enough, I'm going to speak to this if you don't mind. Actually, it was mostly on me, so I'm just giving myself permission to speak about this. But Friday, Cynthia and I had a business meeting, and I had just come back from a 3-week trip. So I came to the business meeting and thinking it was one thing, and it was about to be something else. And, you know, Cynthia said, what's going on with you? What's up with you? And she did some energy check, and she says, God, Chuck, you're like completely in bliss. So, yes, who wouldn't want to be in bliss, right? Exactly. Huh? Except that I was not present. So what does that speak to? Being ungrounded, right? So yeah, here I am, but my feet weren't on the ground, okay? And I couldn't, I was having difficulty remembering, I was having difficulty focusing, I couldn't attend to the task at hand, okay? And that's what happens to us, okay? To all of us at some point or another, you know? And so I went home, you know, opened up my toolbox, pulled out my energy tools, and worked on myself. And then I could get to work, you know, and take on the tasks at hand. The lesson from that, I'm all about lessons. What does this mean to me? Why did this show up for me? Why did this happen at this particular moment in time? So what spoke to me was, and this happens in all of my teachings. Not only do I do energy work, but I teach as well. And in almost all of my teachings at one point or another, something will come up for me right before the teaching that happens to me personally. It's mine, not anybody else's. And then I have to work through it. And then I go, oh, the light bulb goes off, and I go, oh, I should share this with the group that I'm teaching. You know, it's not just for me, it's also for others, right? So that's what's in this class also, is some of the tools that I used in that particular on Friday that can produce alignment. So what this really is about, this class, it's a little bit about the physical, the emotional, and the mental aspects of us all. And I'm going to talk about that, and actually the 3 classes will be speaking about this. But really, ultimately, what it's about would be another language, which would be body, mind, and spirit. And the question is, if any of you can remember back in the old days of maybe in school when you took geometry, Venn diagrams, it's a question of getting these, to what degree are these going to overlap? Some of you may have more mental bodies, some of you maybe have more emotional bodies. You all obviously are spiritual, but to what degree do we overlap? Okay, so we'll be talking about relating these things to one another, in this class. So to give you some idea of what each of the classes are going to be talking about, there's going to be 3 classes, 3 consecutive Wednesdays. The first one is going to be live and as well streamed, which means if you can't physically make it here, you can join it on Zoom. Okay. Second class is going to be Zoom only because I'll be out of town. Third class will be the same thing again, live and streamed. Okay. But
can they be recorded?
They will be recorded. So yes, even if you can't make it at that specific time at 6 o'clock, you can pick it up, the next day when I get the recording. So the first class is going to be about how to find happiness in your body. Okay. So what does that kind of mean? What does that really mean? So I'd like for each of you right now to ask yourself, ask your body if it's happy. Close your eyes. Just ask that question, is my body happy? Okay, now whatever answer you received, okay, you don't have to stand up and shout it out. I want you now to ask, who was asking that question? What part of you was the one asking that question? Was it your mind? Was it your heart? Was it your spirit? We're going to delve into that aspect because that's very, very, very important. What relates to that is answering the question is, does your body have its own consciousness? That relates to the first question. We're going to be looking at that and answering that. As well as, how can you tap into your body consciousness? So this will relate to, how can you talk to your body? Then another topic will be, is there a joy center in your body? And if there is, where is it located? Wouldn't that be nice if you knew where the joy center was? And if you had to go in and stimulate that specific part of you, what would the results be? And then how do our bodies react to negative energy? And what is it we can do about that? Is it about protection? I'm not so much into protection. I think that's a whole other can of worms, but we'll talk about that. We'll talk about protection. We'll talk about how negative energy and positive energy, for that matter, affects the physical body. So that's the first class. The second class is going to be delving into how to achieve peace amidst being in a sea of emotional turmoil, either of your own making or that of the outer world. How does the outer world impact you? I'm standing there flashing my thing. 2 minutes. Okay, I got the 2-minute warning. So how can we live with greater grace and ease? What is emotional energy exactly? And how can we use it constructively instead of destructively? And are joy and happiness feelings or are they states of being? Third class, final class is all important minds. Why is the mind doing so much? Is it overworked and underpaid? What is the diamond mind? And how can we feed and nurture our minds? What causes lack of focus, dizziness, distraction, procrastination, and why do we experience those? And so during each of these classes, we're going to get specific tips and techniques that you can utilize. I try to make my stuff very practical. Okay, I'll present the theory and then the practical thing, the applications. So to kind of like sum up, you have there's a little condensed form there of what I've just talked about what the classes are going to be offering. But what I'd ask is, I would say that most of us think our lives are pretty good. I don't think necessarily we feel really unbalanced. Maybe if I said, are you unhappy? You would say, no, I'm feeling pretty good. I'm happy. Okay. Are you enjoying? No, I'm pretty joyful. But what I would do is I would ask you to go really dig deep and ask yourself if you're really living the happiest and most joyful life that you can imagine. That's a deeper question. And if in there you don't get a resounding yes, then my guess is that this series of classes could open a door for you. And this is a big time of self-care. And what better gift could you give yourselves than the gift of joy?
No. Thank you, thank you, thank you.